So we're going to play around with 2-point perspective again this time instead of boxes and things like that. Let's build a house. So we get to have a little more imagination in here. So I have a horizon line down. I'm going to start off with stuff that feels familiar as boxes. So I'm putting in a vertical line here that crosses the horizon line. It's going above more than it's going below, because if I imagine myself as someone standing in front of this house, you know, there I am. How tall is the building compared to me? So I want to have a little bit of height there. This is a really good way to kind of imagine scale, right? It's that eye level. Even though it's the horizon in the distance, it matches up with my height if I'm standing there. Yeah, so I'm just going to use a little bit of intuition here to find a vanishing point out here that I want this side of the house to be tipping away from me more quickly. And then I'm going to see more of the other side. So that should be interesting. Yeah, so I'm going to just drop down a wall here, and I start to get shape of the end of the house. So let's call this vanishing point 1 over here. Yeah, that feels all right, I think. So let's drag my building way down here, like this, with vanishing point 2 down there. Yeah, it's hard to know when you first do it, like, oh, where is the right place to put the vanishing points? It's partly just practice, maybe drawing things in the reels, kind of looking at angles. But one of the main things people do is put them too close together, and everything looks like it has a fisheye lens. It's like kind of everything's squished in. The angles in there don't feel like they're 90-degree angles in reality that you're mimicking. It feels compressed. So in general, good to kind of push that vanishing point out, maybe a little further than you think. Often off the page, right? I'm doing quite a small drawing here. If I were doing a bigger drawing, I would need my vanishing points to be way off the page. So you need a bigger surface or thing to, you know, be able to extend your line out. So, well, let's go with that for now. I think that looks okay. And I will just be consistent in how I use those as I go forward. So I'm just going to drop an end wall down there, and there's my basic box to build my house. Yeah, it's a bit boring to just have a basic box. So what I'm going to do is divide the front of the house in half. Remember, if you go corner to corner inside your box, you are finding a midpoint. I can raise a pole up from that midpoint to help me find the peak of my roof. But before I even do that, actually, I'm going to build a little add-on room that's going to stick out here. So let's just add something so we're not just in a box zone. So there we go. I'm adding a little room that's going to come out that's half the depth of that front face of the house. So these vanishing points are going to come down like this. Just building a box in here like that. I'm wondering where the back end of this is going to be away from me, so I'm taking what I know, which is the back corner of this. I'm extending that, attaching that to the vanishing point, and extending that out, and that gives me the footprint of this addition I've just added onto my house. Now I go straight up, and I have a front plane like this. There. So there's my kind of one-story add-on. So I'm going to do that, divide that in half, raise my pole up, and that gives me the center of that if I want to put a gable on there too. So I could have a smaller gable back there and a bigger one up here. So something like this might look okay. And then come down the other side like this. So there is my gable, with the farther side of the gable being looking illusionistically smaller than the front as things come toward me, they get bigger. Great. So this also is going to come up and down, back toward the vanishing point. And now I have built in a little add-on. Huh. It's a bit smaller than I wanted it to be, that add-on. Not to worry, I can just extend it out a little bit. I can just add on to each of these lines. I was doing good. So now thinking about this roof coming down, pull that out there. So here is actually something, I wasn't being consistent with it, but this is a really interesting thing as you're thinking about roofs. Because a lot of people will just take this angle and repeat it down here as close as they can, which actually looks pretty good. I think sometimes you can get away with that. Another way to do this that gives you more variety in your angles is to run. So this is my eye level, my horizon line. This is my vanishing point. I raise a vertical straight up, and I find a spot on here where this diagonal hits that up here. And this is my oblique vanishing point 1. So I have vanishing point 1. Directly above that in the air, I have oblique vanishing point 1. And this crosses like that. So anything that is parallel to this roof is going to shrink to there. So I have all my planes that are on the ground going to these two, but my roofs, if they're parallel to that one, are going to go there. And look how different this angle becomes as that goes back. So as I'm working into the distance, this actually starts to really change its angle. So let's see, what was I accurate here? Oh look, I did that one just by intuition. How's this? Also good. So I have made this roof parallel to that one, and yet the angles are all different, and that gives you the sense of, oh, I'm looking to the right, I'm seeing a different kind of angle than as I look to the left. Things are actually squaring up to me. If this roof was right in front of the vanishing point, I'd start getting into like 1 point perspective, and yeah, these would be really squared up, and I wouldn't be seeing anything from this side. So it's really cool how you imagine as things move in front of the different vanishing points, and you can actually feel them turn. So getting a sense of that is really helpful. So there we go. Good. So far, so good. I like to do things like build a little shape here on my roof. It's going to overhang the wall. So right now, that is just flush with the end wall, but giving me my eaves hanging out. But then I can project that shape forward like this. Use this oblique vanishing point again. So now I have an overhang. Let's get rid of some of the stuff hidden here a little bit so we can see this more clearly. So look at this. I have an overhang coming in front of the wall, so that when the rain comes down, I have a little bit of an overhang to keep me dry. It's easier to do at this end because I just need to bring that down. So there we go. But yeah, sometimes I make a little template on the ground to project things up. In this case, I made a little template on the roof and then projected forward the overhang using the vanishing point. Good, looks nice. Yeah, could do the same thing here. Bring that forward. This is going to stick out. Bring that down. So there we go. That adds a sculptural quality to it. Okay, yeah, let's make a more interesting shaped house. Let's drop a corner in here. So we have this box running that way. We're going to bring a box forward, outward. I'm thinking about where it meets that wall. So I don't want this to dwarf the part of the house that I already had. So I'm going to shrink it back a little bit. It's kind of funny. I had to grow this one. I have to shrink this one just to get the look that I want. Not a big fan of the monster house. So, but also not a fan of boring shapes. So we'll try and get this in here. There, I think that's going to work. That's a little more in proportion. So again, corner to corner to find the midpoint. Put my pole up from my midpoint. So this, you notice this is larger than this, right? Things are shrinking as they go back. Makes sense. I'm going to just build a gable here. Now it doesn't have to match this because it's going different angles. So it's on its own trajectory there. That's okay. Now I'm going to bring this roof back to the vanishing point. Now here's one that I there are complicated ways to figure out this angle, but this is a tricky part. And I'm kind of just going to eyeball it now to keep things simpler. But this is at this angle, this is at this angle, and somehow you just kind of go in the middle of those to feel how that would look going back on the roof. You can't match this, right, because it's being intercepted by this angle as this roof comes down. You can't match that, so I'm looking for something in between those two angles that can make it look like that is rising up to the corner there. Yeah, great. So that's looking good. I guess I haven't done my extra roof hangout. So, extra roof hangout. Something like that. I'm actually going to push this wall in a little bit so that I get the hangout right at this corner where they meet too. That's better. So let's put a chimney in here. I am just going to make a footprint on the ground where I want the chimney to meet the ground here. Something like this. So I can imagine how that sits with space around each side. Now I'm going to raise up my chimney. It's going to be wider. It's going to get thinner. So this is going to come up. It's going to follow these curves that I put in are going to rise up. This is going to come right up into the air. So this is going to mirror that, but it's going to have some notches in it to follow the angles of the roof. And then it's actually going to be wider because part of the chimney is actually embedded in the house, right? So now I'm going to use my vanishing point to get the top angle. Look how steep that angle is, right? As I start to get up there above my head, I really cannot see the top of this chimney. It is quite a ways up there. So now my chimney comes down, down, down. I'm going to widen out a bit and come down to meet my footprint. You know, let's put a pair of windows in here. Okay, we're going to put a pair of windows, and we're going to use this center point to make them symmetrical within this. So here I have a window like this. Yeah, that looks nicely in proportion. I suppose you could put a big picture window there, but this is a bit more fun to be able to do two. So now I'm going to, well, that's interesting. What am I trying to do? Because my windows actually aren't centered. What I need to do is find the center height of this window. Put my guide through like this. Good. So this is the center point of that at the center point of this wall. Okay? So now I go like this. I go bottom, middle, top. So when that hits the top height of this, right, my window is going to be this high and this big at the bottom. So I take this, run it through the center line, like this, top, bottom, middle, top, and I can drop that down. And now I have an equal space on each side of the center of the window. But I can even reach out further from this side. I can go bottom, middle, top. I wonder if I can check it from here, see if it adds up. Pretty good. So there are my two windows with the center spot there. Actually, it's a bit awkward that the length of the window is quite similar to the gap in the middle. I'm going to actually make these windows bigger because I want to have a nice view. So I'm going to pull this out this way. Make that bigger. And then I take that decision, project it outward using that middle point. So now I have two windows that match, and it's a little more elegant in terms of the spacing. So you notice this is all sitting on a very, very flat plane. What would happen if it's on a hill or something? Like there's a little bit of a, not that I want the whole house to tip, but you know, I've just kind of drew in some foundation, but what if the ground isn't completely level? So what I'm going to imagine here is that the ground is pretty level up here front, but as we come down here, there's actually going to be a bit of a hill of things moving down. So what's going to happen is the foundation is going to become longer here, and I'm going to get my slope coming down like that. So maybe you've got kind of a walkout basement down there, or some kind of cellar that you can get into in the backyard. I don't know, something going on. But that looks interesting, right? Everything is still sitting on the same planes. This kind of division between the house proper and the foundation is moving back and forth in space in some cool ways. But now I have a little bit of a hill there. And the house is still going to hold tight. That's cool.